Hey y'all, go subscribe to me on Twitch, on YouTube, and on TikTok. My Twitch and YouTube are J_Crispy, and my TikTok is JCrispy. Alrighty, have a good day. Alrighty, y'all. Let's watch this live coverage of the Doge Senate hearing today. Alright, let's get to it.
We can fix it by laying people off.
Questions from their constituents if they are bothering to hear them out. I would expect all of my colleagues to get information about Elon Musk's actions in the Social Security Administration. Doge's website lists Social Security field office closures in Carlsbad, California, Abilene, Texas, Greenville, North Carolina, and Logan, West Virginia. If it was me representing these cities, I would want more details about why my constituents were losing these valuable services. We all know that Social Security wait times are too long. Office closures will only increase them. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The richest man in the world is going after Social Security.
Shit's
and
nuts,
he doesn't
dude.
even understand it, doesn't know how it works. Elon Musk calls Social Security a Ponzi scheme. And because of the cap,
it's because he comes from money. He's never had to have anybody who relied on Social Security. He's never had to think, will Social Security be there for me? You got to realize 60% of wealthy people are not earning their wealth. They're born into their wealth, just like his co-pilot, Vice President Donald Trump.
Elon Musk paid all of his Social Security taxes on January 1st of this year at 12:15 a.m. He does what the world is doing with their constituents, money, and data. This resolution simply asks the question. I look forward to all my colleagues voting yes to find out more about what is happening in their districts. And I want to just say this. At the start of this markup, I had one of my staff call the Social Security customer service line. We've been discussing this resolution for quite some time now, and she's still on hold. Closing Social Security field offices and reducing staff is only going to increase those hold times for our most vulnerable, I should say. All constituents are valuable, but our most vulnerable constituents. And Republicans don't seem to care.
Oh, no, they don't.
I suspect that your constituents will. And with that, I yield back.
The member yields back. I now recognize Ms. Chu to strike the last word for 5 minutes.
I strongly support this resolution of inquiry, and it is because my constituents are sick with worry at the risk of fraudsters having their Social Security numbers, banking information, and other personal information shared with Musk cronies who've invaded the Social Security Administration.
Some of which have already been in trouble for sharing company secrets at their last job.
So let's be clear. President Trump and Elon Musk have launched a public campaign against Social Security. Mr. Musk is calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme, and both he and President Trump are spreading widely discredited lies about the program and its integrity. But the facts don't add up. Let me read just a few of the countless news headlines debunking their false claims. The Associated Press says tens of millions of dead people aren't getting Social Security checks despite Trump and Musk claims. ABC News says Musk misreads Social Security data. Millions of dead people are not getting benefits, experts say. CBS News says news.
He's just making up a whole bunch of hoolah because he can't find actual fraud. Like, if he was just going in there and actually trying to find fraud and not trying to, like he went on stage with a chainsaw saying he was going to do and take a chainsaw to all government help, like, it would be a different story. But no, he's not trying to go in there and do the right thing. He's trying to cut everything down. When has it ever been an acceptable thought to think that the world's richest man would be helping us, would be there for the people, especially like the lady said earlier, the most vulnerable people? You don't become the world's richest man by helping vulnerable people like that. You become the world's richest man by taking advantage of those people.
The Social Security chief refutes claims of deceased people over 100 years old getting checks. The Washington Post says Elon Musk claims of Social Security fraud don't hold up ability to serve the public. And why are they trying to destroy the Social Security Administration? It's the first step of a long-standing effort by Republicans to dismantle trust in Social Security and slash benefits. The Trump administration wants to close Social Security offices across the nation and slash the agency's workforce by nearly 1 in 8 employees. Social Security Administration, this administration is already at a 50-year staffing low due to years of underfunding, and it's serving more beneficiaries than ever.
Don't forget, everybody pays into Social Security. This isn't just free money from the government.
How will gutting its workforce help it to serve the American people? Well, the answer is that it doesn't. And in fact, it's very likely a move to undermine confidence so that the Trump administration can privatize it. And with that, I yield back.
Member yields back. I now recognize Ms. Moore for 5 minutes to strike the last word.
Thank you so very, very much, Mr. Chairman. And
These people are greedy, evil, money-hungry businessmen. That's all it is. Musk did the same thing when he came into Twitter. Fired everybody who worked there. He's doing the same thing with our government. The difference is our government is not a business.
and ranking member here today. We have our Republican colleagues swearing that Donald Trump will not do anything to Social Security. And, you know, from your lips to God's ears, let's hope, you know, I'm on your side. I'm hoping that you're right. But we have known that Republicans have long wanted to destroy Social Security and really privatize it. As a matter of fact, former chair of this committee, my good friend Paul Ryan from Wisconsin, openly tried to privatize Social Security. My own Senator Johnson was the first person I ever heard call it a Ponzi scheme, long before Elon Musk was on the scene. And Mick Mulvaney, during the Trump 1 administration, who was a former chief of staff, testified before the Joint Economic Committee that, yes, we need to go after Social Security because just like Jesse James robbed banks, it's because that's where the money is. And so I'm not convinced that they're not going to do it. Musk has just basically said we need to go after entitlement spending, which he designates as Social Security and Medicare. So I think that it's important for our Republican friends
Going after that money because it's something that doesn't affect him. You know, if it was the defense budget, that'd be a little different, wouldn't it? He ain't trying to cut any money from the defense budget, that's for sure.
not to be willfully ignorant, to be useful idiots about this. And so that's what they say. But what are they doing? Let's look at that. This CR.
Best thing to do is look at what they're doing and what they've done before. Don't listen to what they say they're going to do or not going to do, because they'll say one thing one day and the other thing the next day.
That we passed just yesterday. In order to flat fund, first we heard Mr. Estes, the new chairman of the subcommittee, talk about how awful the customer service is. Well, yeah, but that is part of the scheme to undermine Social Security to the point that people lose faith in it. And as a matter of fact, Martin O'Malley sent me this text. He says they just want to wreck it so they can rob it. And now with this CR and the mass firings taking place at Social Security, as we speak, they are destroying customer service for the American people, driving this agency to collapse and putting at grave and serious risk the monthly benefits of 72 million Americans. That's the former commissioner of Social Security, Martin O'Malley. And the President Trump tells us that he's going to cut taxes on Social Security. Well, that really sounds great. Send people, I heard, $5,000 checks. That really sounds great. And that, of course, would help people making $20,000, $30,000 immediately, but in the long run, they would be hurt the most.
Yep.
And wealthy people would be helped the most. But in the meantime, it would cost the trust fund $1.5 trillion to do that. You know, watch what they do, not what they say. That would
Amen.
undermine Social Security tremendously. The Social Security payment accuracy is about 99.8%. So I don't know how much waste, fraud, and abuse can be found in it. This really, the last point that I want to make is that Elon Musk is a tech tycoon. And I wonder what the value of this data is to him. It's immeasurable. So this is a serious conflict of interest for this man to have Social Security data when he is a tech tycoon.
Member's time has expired.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence, and I yield back.
I recognize Mr. Boyle to strike the last word for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Strike the last word. Mr. Chairman, 70 million Americans get Social Security. It is the most successful anti-poverty program in American history. It is sometimes called an entitlement. I prefer to call it an earned benefit. Millions of Americans throughout their working careers paid into Social Security with every paycheck. It truly is an earned benefit. Now, there's some who have expressed falsely the notion that somehow Social Security contributes to our national debt. It doesn't at all. In fact, right now, there is a $2.7 trillion surplus in the Social Security Trust Fund. It has been...
Don't forget that Donald Trump, last time he was the president, raised the national debt by $8 trillion, more than any other president before.
certified both by the Congressional Budget Office as well as the Social Security trustees that there is enough money in the trust fund to fully pay out benefits, 100% of benefits, today through the year 2035, so for the next decade. And certainly we have enough time over the next decade to make modifications that are necessary to ensure that Social Security is fully there for generations to come.
They don't want to do that,
No, the
though.
greatest threat to Social Security is not its current financing. The greatest threats to Social Security are Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Elon Musk recently called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. Not the first time, by the way, that he has used that exact term, a Ponzi scheme. You know, Vice President Vance last fall explicitly said that Elon Musk would, and I quote, target Social Security, and that he has. Elon Musk has previously raised the specter of privatization of Social Security. This is also not the first time that we have heard of a Republican effort to privatize Social Security. Exactly 20 years ago, when George W. Bush won re-election, right about this moment, he said, and I quote, "I have political capital and I intend to use it." He wanted to spend that political capital on the privatization of Social Security. Fortunately, that effort was defeated.
All the Republicans have ever wanted to do is benefit the rich, benefit their donors, and take away the middle class. Sooner or later, if we keep going down this road, there's going to be the lower class and the higher class, and there's going to be a very big divide.
Elon Musk is not the first and won't be the last Republican. Which effort is to identify waste or fraud Social Security is a 99.8% accuracy rate. Private sector would do well to meet such a high rate of 99.8%. It is no wonder that Social Security is the most popular government program that we have. So on behalf of my own father and the tens of millions of Americans who rely on Social Security, who have earned that benefit, I know that we on this side of the dais will continue to speak out and defend it. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Now recognize the member from Virginia, Mr. Breyer.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, we've heard the $72 billion number a number of times. The OIG report from 2015 to 2022. That's an awful lot of money, but let's point out that's less than 1% of the money paid out over that 8-year period of time. It's still a great deal. We need to deal with it, but it's not like show me any organization, any business operation that doesn't have 1% mistake in it, and I'll be astonished. By the way, let me also point out that during that 8-year period of time, Donald Trump was president for those 4 years, 4 of those 8 years. Look, my real deep concern is about Elon Musk's attitude about, his misunderstanding of, and his plans for the Social Security Administration. Well, let me just first begin with the absolute lack of transparency about Elon Musk himself and his many, many complicated financial interests. I just compare it to my personal experience. When I wanted to serve on the Obama transition team, 2008, I got fingerprinted for the first time. They went and talked to my employees and my neighbors. I had to file extensive background check. It took me hours and to fill out hundreds of pages. When I went to Switzerland for the State Department, I was prohibited from any ties to the business I'd spent decades building in order to prevent any possible corruption. When I came here, when I owned stocks, I had to report them every single month, any activity. We have to do this extensive financial disclosure every May. For 10 years, I've bought every meal, every cup of coffee, paid every toll, never allowed to promote any business because I'm not special. We are not special. We are servants of the public. And then you get Elon Musk, who is a very special case. He is the greatest possibility for corruption by far in American history. And don't get me started on Tesla advertisements on the White House lawn. My constituents depend on Social Security, not just as an earned entitlement to support them after retirement, but as an agency they expect to work with when we need it. Every year I go to our Social Security office to visit, pump them up, and I'm so impressed with how hard everyone is working. Everyone's busy the entire time. So closing offices and messing with the system that people have paid into their entire lives, closing without full transparency, it's just crazy. I can't imagine a need to access Social Security payment information in this manner, short of trying to dismantle the agency. We've heard again and again that Musk thinks it's a Ponzi scheme, but look.
Man pulled out a symbolic chainsaw. What else do you need to know that he's not here to help or fix these agencies? No, he's here to tear them down.
If someone's messing with my money, I want full transparency of what they're doing. And the Trump-Vance administration has the Silicon Valley perspective of move fast and break it. But that doesn't work with the federal government. It doesn't work with the social administration. And if the goal is to derail and dismantle the Trump Social Security, Trump shouldn't hide that. My Republican friends have again said that
We leave Trump up to rule this country like a business. It's going to be in the same fate that his casinos, Trump steaks, and all kinds of other businesses are. Gone and dead.
they have no intention of doing that. But when Musk and Trump close offices, fire employees, make it harder to get the phone answered, make it longer to get an appointment, when they destroy people shamed, they should support this simple inquiry. I yield back.
Member yields back. I now recognize Ms. Van Dyne.
Thank you
5
very
minutes
much.
to strike the last word.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You know, when President Trump got elected, he promised to change the status quo and bring accountability to DC. And that starts with an in-depth review of the agencies, including Social Security, that pay trillions of dollars a year out. Doge employees are subject to the same legal penalties. And I want to make sure that we are understanding that because we've seen a lot of unsubstantiated charges today. But they are they are subject to the same legal penalties and fines for improper disclosure of sensitive information as every other Social Security Administrator employee. In fact, the acting commissioner of Social Security affirmatively stated that Doge personnel cannot make changes to agency systems, benefit payments, or other information. They only have read access. Doge personnel must follow the
Bullshit.
law, and if they violate the law, they will be deferred to the Department of Justice for possible persecution.
When Musk went in there with his little cronies and started deleting all kinds of shit, that was just read access. No, they have more access than they're letting on, and they're not going to be held reliable. I mean, look at their boss. He tried to overthrow the country, and he was never held reliable.
The status quo is no
Liable.
longer acceptable, and Americans voted for change, and President Trump is delivering. In fact, we've heard some complaints today about the level of quality of customer service. I would have them know that I've got great news for my colleagues who are questioning from the Biden administration. I asked for unanimous consent to submit for the record a chart from the SSA's website showing that the 800 numbers average speed of an answer for this fiscal year is 21.6 minutes. This is down, by the way, from 35.8 minutes during the Biden administration. So I would hope that all of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle would be thanking President.
Don't forget, during the Biden administration, we had something called COVID going on. So there was a lot of people out of work, and they have just started taking a whole bunch of people out of the government. So check back in 6 months or a year, Miss Van Dyne, or whatever you call her.
President Trump. But I also want to talk about some of the most egregious and easily provable lie that we've heard on this side, that President Trump wants to. Fact, the Social Security Administration made an estimate of $72 billion in improper payments between 2015 and 2022. It exists. We know that it exists. The Social Security's Office of the Inspector General found that. President Trump has repeatedly stated that he will fight for Social Security. President Trump has repeatedly stated that he will protect Social Security. And
Also swore an oath to the Constitution, and then 4 years later said, let's rip that bitch up.
President Trump has repeatedly stated that he will not cut Social Security. House Republicans stand with President Trump's commitment to preserving and strengthening Social Security benefits for seniors. That,
of course they do, because if they don't, just like Elon said, they'll primary his ass. When you got as much power as Elon and Trump have right now, everybody's going to bow and kiss the ring. And when they don't, they feel the pain.
They count on. But in addition to that, I don't want to just talk for the president, because we have all heard.
Now we're going to get fraud out of there. You know, look, Social Security won't be touched other than if it's fraud or something. We're going to.
So I don't know how many times the man has to say it. He has repeated it publicly a number of times. If you go to the White House website, they have it published a number of times.
When you're a known liar, it's hard to believe you. Sorry, not sorry.
I keep hearing this lie over and over again. They know it's wrong. I would really hope that we could all work and want to have it be more effective, a more efficient program. And that's what we're here to do. And I would hope that I can get my other colleagues on the other side of the aisle to agree with that. And with that, I yield.
Member yields. I now recognize Mr. Evans for 5 minutes to strike the last word.
I move to strike the last word. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for calling this makeup today for us to address two important resolutions which demands transparency in the federal government. I know my Republican colleagues are big fans of government transparency, so I expect they will vote in favor of these resolutions. Over the weekend, I held a town meeting. Thousands of constituents in my district. During my town hall, numerous constituents submitted questions regarding the treatment that the Trump administration posed to Social Security. Many of my constituents wanted to know what Congress is doing to protect the information from Trump, Musk, and their hackers that are taking over the government. The answer to them is that this bill is what the government is doing. By paying the resolution of inquiry, Congress will be able to demand answers from the administration on how American data being illegally retrieved from addressing the Social Security Administration. and is being restricted on how service and payment to Social Security recipients will be impacted. I think it would be a no-brainer that this committee would want more information on how our constituents are being served and how the official handling this information are being honored. A vote against this resolution is a vote to protect Donald Trump and Mr. Musk and vote against protecting the American people. Mr. Chairman, there's probably no more significant issue as you heard the members talking about Social Security and what it means. All of us stand behind it, particularly on the Democratic side, because for what it's done, it's an earned benefit. It's something people need. So I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to yield pass it to Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Evans, for yielding. I just want to point out that was mentioned by one of our colleagues that the President Trump has made all these pledges and promises to protect Social Security, and we shouldn't be worried. But we are worried because his right-hand person is calling it a Ponzi scheme. Republican members of Congress have bills to do away with it and to privatize it and to let it phase out. This is terribly concerning. And I want to point out that all of these promises that then candidate Trump made, we're hearing about from our friends on the other side of the dais, none of those were a promise to privatize Social Security. And that's what he's talking about now. It's been pointed out that he's against waste, fraud, and abuse. Well, we're all against waste, fraud, and abuse. But the fact of the matter is the Trump administration is firing federal prosecutors across the country, threatening to impeach any judges that don't agree with him. And it looks to me like if there's a big void in this fraud area, if there's all this fraud that's being being discovered, why aren't there charges being filed? Fraud is against the law. And if someone breaks the law, you file charges against them. I haven't seen any fraud charges being brought up after all this investigative work.
Because it's all bullshit.
Waste, we've seen the result of all of the reported waste, the waste of people 350 years old collecting Social Security benefits. We already know that that's just not only a false claim, but it's a laughable claim. So I'm not sure where this waste is. If there is waste, let's work together to do away with it. And as far as abuse, the most abuse that I've seen so far is the abuse that our constituents who rely on Social Security and Medicare or Medicaid are experiencing right now. That's very abusive what's going on. I yield back to balance my time.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize Mr. Schneider for 5 minutes to strike the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word. I'm proud to join my Democratic colleagues today to support HRES 195 to compel the Trump administration to provide to this body all information pertaining to Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency's attacks on the Social Security Administration. I can tell you my constituents are writing, calling, pleading. They are profoundly concerned about what the Doge or Doge is doing to Social Security. Maybe there's a good plan, but they don't know. And the words we're hearing, Elon Musk calling it a Ponzi scheme, give reason, legitimate reason for concern. The American people deserve to know what Doge is doing, whether it is strengthening or undermining Social Security and the safety net in this country. Social Security is an earned benefit. Period. Stop. After a lifetime of hard work, millions.
They were really doing good things. Why wouldn't they be transparent? Just like at the USAID office when they wouldn't let people in. Why not? Like, those are people in the government. When you're being shady about shit like that, it's usually because you're doing something shady. You can't trust these rich folks not to do something shady. You don't know this person from Joe. You only know what he wants you to see.
Millions of current and future retirees are counting on their Social Security benefits that they worked for, they paid for, that they have earned. I didn't think that I would have to sit in this hearing room. Will not be cut by an unelected oligarch. My Republican colleagues today will tell you that the Trump administration will not hurt Social Security benefits. We even heard a recording of the president's voice, and that the Democrats are needlessly causing panic or obsessed with Elon Musk. Let me be clear. I would love to never think or hear from Elon Musk ever again. I wish I could count on the president to be true to his words. History has shown otherwise. This week I had a telephone town hall, and I promise you that the people on that town hall are frightened about the actions of Elon Musk and the false promises of President Trump. They are scared that their benefits are at risk. I wish I could provide them the comfort and confidence that Social Security is safe. But sadly, that's not the world we're living in today. Elon Musk thinks Social Security, and again I am quoting, is the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. And he's the one in the driver's seat. Benefits that are earned by people working and paying into a system are not a Ponzi scheme. Elon Musk has said that the fraud in Social Security is the big one to eliminate. I agree, we should eliminate fraud. We should work to eliminate waste. We can all agree that there are improvements to be made in the federal government, and processes can always be made more efficient to better serve the American people. That's not what Doge is doing. In my home state of Illinois, we have 2.3 million Social Security beneficiaries, people who rely on their Social Security income that they paid for and earned to make ends meet, to give them the security and a dignified retirement. They want good customer service. We talked about it here. One of my colleagues said that, hey, we're improving customer service. Well, Doge is planning to close Social Security field offices and hearing offices and reduce staff. That's not going to improve service. What impact will that have on the 70 million Americans who receive Social Security benefits?
Not a good one, that's for sure.
Rather than improving service, these actions will undermine Social Security's ability to serve beneficiaries and deliver payments on time with certainty. And that's just wrong. Social Security is a sacred trust. It is the foundation of our economic security. The American people deserve to know what the administration is planning for the future of Social Security and the Social Security Administration, and what impact that will have on their benefits. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support this resolution, simply asking for transparency, for information about what the administration is doing to an earned benefit Americans have worked hard for. If it's true, as my Republican colleagues say, that Musk is no threat to the system, let this resolution prove us wrong. And if, as we believe, Musk has plans to privatize, to minimize, to reduce, and ultimately eliminate Social Security, we should know that as well. The American people deserve to know the truth. I yield back.
We shouldn't just listen to what they say they're going to do. We need proof, and apparently they're not willing to provide that proof, so we need to force them to provide that proof before it's too late.
Gentleman yields back and now recognized from Florida, Mr. Bean.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much, and a very good afternoon to you. Good afternoon, Ways and Means Committee. We agree. There is something that these two sides that keep going back and forth agree on. The American people are scared and confused, and there's one reason why they are scared and confused about Social Security, because these folks on the left of me keep saying falsely that President Trump and these Republicans want to cut, privatize, or eliminate Social Security. It is simply not true. When you bang your hand on—
So when you pull out a chainsaw on stage, we're just supposed to believe that that's not what you meant? Come on now.
On the dais and you raise your voice to scare the American people and confuse them, I don't think it does us any good, because I'm going to tell you the truth. Always giving your money through Social Security is in jeopardy. In 9 years, if we don't make changes in 9 years 2034, changes will come automatically, and these benefits will be adjusted downward. And that's the last thing that President Trump, this committee, Chairman Smith, Chairman Estes, who showed us last week in a slideshow that's really terrifying, that we have to make changes. So we're gonna have to cut ourselves off. It's like an addict realizing that changes are going to have to be made. We bring in an auditor who points out all of this crazy spending, and because some people can't defend the crazy spending found, their playbook is the only card to play is to blame the auditor. As if we owned a store that was robbed. Elon Musk watches the video and says, here's who stole from you. And then oh my gosh, I can't believe he looked at.
Like they said prior, if there's actually people committing these atrocities and these breaking these laws, why haven't they been charged? Because it's bullshit.
At the videotape. He had no authority to look at the videotape of who robbed me. So people, we have to come together. And I want you to know your words have consequences. You have vilified Elon Musk, who's working for free. He is a government employee, but he's working for free. I've got 2 articles of.
He ain't working for free. Don't forget that ever since Trump became president, his money has like doubled. He's making money in the position that he's doing right now. Best believe that.
Massive attack. We keep hearing Elon Musk is unelected. He's unelected. Let me tell you who is unelected. Whoever was using Biden's auto pen for the last 4 years, that is who is unelected. I've heard some history stories this morning. I'm going to give you the history, the real history of the last time we came together to solve problems. Let me tell you who did it. It was, how about this? It was Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich from both sides of the political spectrum came together, and they passed the last balanced budget. And how about this? Bill Clinton did it through the elimination of 428,000 employees, and he did it through $25,000 buyouts. He offered buyouts for federal employees. And so that is the playbook of how we can get it done. Let me tell you, American people, I'm looking at you, and I'm making an honest plea to this committee and everybody watching. If we're going to solve it, maybe we need to go to a room where there's no cameras and we can be honest that we're going broke. We have an addiction to spending. And it's just hard to realize that that can't continue.
There's other places to go after you spending a whole bunch of money that isn't needed spending. Why are you going after Social Security?
We're on an unsustainable path. That is the dangerous existential threat to our country. It's just that we're spending ourselves into oblivion. So finally, we're realizing we've got a government.
Keep out this as they keep spending more and more on that defense budget, that's for sure.
We can't afford. We've got employees we can't afford, and we are finally right-sizing. I know it hurts. But if we're going to be the land of the free for our children and grandchildren, then we must make these hard decisions right now.
The land of the free unless they're gay, black, any type of minority.
Stand with me, Democrats. Stand with me, Republicans. And let's go forward for the American people. Get this job done for our kids and grandkids. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and I recognize from California, Mr. Panetta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word. To my colleague and good friend from Florida, Mr. Bean, look, man.
Of course, Mr. Bean is from Florida.
Fact is that the Clinton administration had a plan. That's all we're asking for. We just want to see the plan. That's the intent of this resolution right here. It's very straightforward. And more importantly, it's desired and it's demanded by my constituents in California's 19th Congressional District. All it would do would require the administration to provide Congress with details about what the heck Elon Musk and Doge is doing in their accessing of sensitive information at the Social Security Administration. Monthly benefits. That's 120,000 retirees, 5,000 children, and 8,000 disabled workers.
To get those benefits, my constituents need a Social Security Administration that is responsive, that's prompt, and just able to do its dang job. Now, I agree, we'll have to do something about the Social Security Administration. If we don't have serious conversations about it, about how we shore it up, about how we fix it, we got to do that, because if we don't, we lose it by 2034. Something needs to be done.
There's a difference between having a conversation about it and trying to destroy it.
But that something is not putting it in the wood chipper
Exactly.
without a plan. Because if you allow Elon Musk to do that, then you will be held accountable. Now, one of the things that I pride myself on, and I think if you're a good member of Congress, all of us pride ourselves on this, is casework, making the federal government work for people at a personal level. That's what inspired me to run for Congress, because I heard about it throughout my life. This is how we are doing our jobs, that we can then affect people's lives for the better. And when they have an issue with the federal government, when it comes to the services of the federal government that they have earned, they come to us. IRS, veterans, passports, immigration, and of course, Social Security. They rely on us to help them with that. And since I've been in office, we have worked on thousands and thousands of cases related to Social Security. And I'm proud to say that when it comes to Social Security, we have had numerous success stories for people who come to us after struggling to get answers. So we get the inquiry, we get on the horn, and we push the agencies to get them to do the right thing, to get to yes for our constituents. We highlight the issue, we push the issue, and there are people there to help us solve the issue. Now, unfortunately, this administration is doing the exact opposite. It's putting the Social Security Agency in a wood chipper by cutting the people and gutting the systems that help us, that help our constituents get their earned benefits. They want to decimate it. They want to tear it down, and eventually it looks like that they want to privatize it. They are doing this by planning to close nearly 50 field offices and slashing the Social Security workforce by 12%. They have not provided evidence to prove that that this can be done without impacting benefits. If anything, they are proving the opposite. Closing field offices means longer travel times and less help for people looking for guidance. Reducing the workforce means fewer people to review disability claims, hear appeals, answer phones, and sort through the paperwork required to claim survivor benefits. Last year, Social Security call wait times were actually improving and reduced to 13 minutes. This year, they're already back to doubling that time at over a half hour. What's worse is that as a part of these cuts by Doge, the acting Social Security Commissioner, Leland Dudek, said himself that outsiders who are unfamiliar with the nuances of the Social Security programs are making decisions and they will make mistakes. Mr. Chairman, mistakes could have terrible consequences for our constituents, for your constituents, and for the access of benefits that they have earned.
You know, the only people it won't affect, the people making the decisions.
Look, our duty as members of Congress is to conduct oversight. That means asking the administration basic questions about what they are doing with taxpayer resources and why these actions have been taken. Like I said, and I think many
Meanwhile, the Republicans say, just trust me, bro.
of you, all of us, are proud of the casework we do when we make government work for people. But when those services stop or get reduced, the least that we can do is live up to our responsibility as members of Congress to find out why, how, and what. We're asking for it, but let me tell you, our constituents, your constituents, are demanding it. So it's well past time that we stop abdicating our constitutional responsibilities and start pushing back on this administration, Elon Musk, and Doge.
Lenny, for 5 minutes to strike the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield my time to Mr. Larson.
I thank the gentlelady from Washington. And I would, Mr. Chairman, like to submit for the record, in fact, it just came out that under the title of Democracy Dies in Darkness, Social Security facing pressure from Doge weighs big cuts to phone service. You question why we want to have Elon Musk in front of us. And here, the very group that he's leading is pressuring people to do away with the phone service. As Mr. Panetta just mentioned, His constituents are responding, as are all of our constituents.
Pursuant to the
You don't cut $2 trillion without affecting the people that need the help the most from the government. It doesn't happen.
unanimous
Because-
consent request that's ordered.
Pardon?
Unanimous consent so ordered.
Thank you for, and continuing with this article, because I think it's very relevant to the discussion here and should be part of the record. It would take me 10 minutes to read it. But it deserves to be here, along with, we've heard today a lot about facts. Here's the facts. Here's the truth. There are over 70 million Americans who rely on Social Security. 10,000 baby boomers a day become eligible for Social Security. There has been no adjustment to Social Security in over 50 years. 5 million of your fellow Americans get below poverty level checks from Social Security, having paid into it all their lives. Most of them are women, and of them, most of them are women of color. For close to 50% of all Americans, Social Security is the main thing they have. The genius of Franklin Delano Roosevelt is still with us today. It is the safety net for capitalism that you guys should be joining with us to make sure that we preserve and extend and provide that opportunity where you have an environment where you can take risk, knowing that there's a safety net there for the very people who work hard and play by the rules every day to make that investment. I yield my remaining of my time to Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. So my friend, Mr. Bean, pointed out a couple of things that I think are really important. So let's take a look at the record. In 1981, President Reagan presided over a substantial tax cut. In 1982, President Reagan looked at the tax cut and said, no, 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 it's too much. We have to revisit it, which he did. 1990, President Bush Sr., after having made a pledge.
But Democrats hit dead ends.
Without objection.
Earlier this week, President Trump and Elon Musk went about cherry picking which Social Security field and hearing offices would stay open. In the article, Mr. Cole from Oklahoma was able to convince Doge to keep his local offices open while they didn't even have the decency to notify my office of their intent to close one of the critical offices in Las Vegas. Let me be clear. Members of Congress shouldn't have to kiss Elon Musk's ass to get our offices for our constituents on Social Security open or to have them remain open. I am offended by the fact that members on the other side are using their access to Elon Musk and jeopardizing the well-being of everyone else. My constituents deserve the same treatment that Representative Coles are receiving. And this is not about politics. It's not about voting Republican or Democrat or whether you belong to a party or not. And I also want to lift up this article that just came out because it speaks to the hypocrisy. While we are having this hearing today, and while the other side is objecting to even getting basic information about what Elon Musk is doing to Social Security, they literally announced ending the phone program that helps with claims processing and is used by millions of elderly and disabled Americans.
Without objection.
This data shows that the agency received 81.2 million calls to its national toll-free number in 2023, although not all were for claims. Staff within Social Security are currently gaming out scenarios for how to handle an abrupt reduction of telephone service, one of the persons briefed on the matter said. So to my colleagues, do you think this is cutting Social Security? It is. Do you think this is hurting constituents' ability to get their rightful questions asked about their earned benefit? This is not an entitlement. Do you think this is helping make government more efficient? And why wouldn't we have the person, the mastermind, the genius, Elon Musk, who's come up with this proposal to come before this committee? Or at least respond based on the list of questions that are called for in this query. I have 140,000 individuals in my district who depend on Social Security. The majority of them, it's their sole source of income. 108,000 are retirees. 16,500 are disabled workers who count on these benefits. And yeah, I'll bang on the damn dais because I'm here to defend my constituents from Elon Musk, Donald Trump, or House Republicans who will try to take away what they have invested into their own Social Security. This is money they earned. Take your hands off of the people's Social Security. It's not yours. And Elon Musk
have a conversation about looking at our debt and deficit and economic policy different is political malpractice. It's government malpractice. Not to have a conversation about Doge, not to have a conversation about cutting spending, not by having a conversation about the fiscal health of our country. And it's interesting, I also serve on our House Intelligence Committee. And last year we had General Petraeus and General McChrystal, served under Republicans and Democrats, have unbelievable reputations for serving in our military. And they came and talked to us about the threats facing America from our adversaries. So they talked about China and they talked about Russia, they talked about Iran, but they said the biggest threat is our debt and our deficit. And as most of us should know, we're paying more now on our interest than we do the entire Department of Defense. Think about that for a sec. It's insane. But yet we can't have a conversation with a new president that ran on fixing the fiscal health of this country, created the Doge Committee, Department on Government Efficiency. Again, it's political malpractice that we're not thinking about this. I want to reference an article from it was an editorial in the Wall Street Journal dated February 25th of this year titled America's Future Depends on Doge. I want to read one section of that. The message from today's civic elites is that the president's job is to pretend to be in charge while doing nothing meaningful. Shut up. Don't disturb the administrative state. Let it keep doing its thing without oversight or disruption. And you'll get your library or best-selling presidential memoir. Mr. Trump refuses this deal. In his second term, he's determined to slay the bureaucratic beast. He knows all too well from his first term and the Biden years. Doge's efforts are epic, breaking more than a century of acquiescence to spending and government. The Trump team is courageously confronting the problem head on. We have an obligation and responsibility to bring down our debt and get this country back on track economically. And the Doge Commission and what President Trump and his team are doing is putting us on that path. I yield back.
Ms. Plaskett.
Mr. Chair, I move to strike. the last word.
Ladies recognized.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You know, my colleagues today we've all been talking about accountability. And I think that this resolution speaks to accountability because many of us believe that the Trump administration is taking a wrecking ball to Social Security Administration. And they don't want to meet with us about that. Far from making the agency more efficient, the Trump administration is undermining its ability to serve the public. And the primary question is why? Why is this happening? Why is privatization the goal? Why are they trying to destroy Social Security? Many of us believe it's the first step of a long-standing effort by Republicans to dismantle trust in Social Security, slash benefits, and then allow people who are disgruntled and have lost faith in it to allow Wall Street to take it over. The Trump administration wants to close Social Security offices, slash agencies' workforce. The Social Security Administration is already at a 50-year staffing low due to years of underfunding. And with baby boomers increasing the number of beneficiaries, that's a recipe for disaster. How will gutting the workforce help Social Security Administration serve the American people? The point is, it does not. That's the goal. It does not. The chaos and the confusion, the constant stream of misinformation and missteps have a purpose. Let's talk about that. The misinformation, a Ponzi scheme. Listen, I'm a New Yorker. I understand a Ponzi scheme. A con man promises a payout that he can't deliver, collects the money, and disappears. That's not what's happening in the Social Security Administration because people have put their money in it and they are receiving a benefit. That's not a Ponzi scheme. Repeatedly stating that dead people and 150-year-olds are receiving checks, every newspaper, every group has said that that's untrue, including the Washington Post, which has already kissed the ring of the president. They're the ones also who have said that that's not true. How are we doing this? And why are we doing this? We want to bring back accountability. My colleague has stated that Doge only has read-only access. We've seen weeks ago that that's not true. Oh, they just accidentally were able to make changes. Second of all, if they keep the information for themselves, for data mining, for future elections, we would never be able to find that out to be able to prosecute it because it's not disclosed to anyone but themselves. Why are they keeping this information and what is the purpose of it? Make no mistake, the Trump administration's actions are to devastate the Social Security Administration's ability to serve the public and deliver Social Security payments so that they can then have access to $2.7 trillion for Wall Street to be able to play with. They need more money because you know what? We're not addicted to spending, as my colleague said. Many people are addicted to greed. That's what this is about. And the greed happens to be not from themselves, but for the American people. That's the Ponzi scheme, is them taking your damn money and using it for their own self, to enrich themselves more than they already have. That's the addiction. And you know what? This place is broken because Congress has abdicated its responsibility to be the ones to find that race fraud and abuse and to do something different about it. we're letting somebody who's unelected, who's an auditor, now he's an auditor. Is he everything? Is he God? To be able to do what he wants to do with
federal employees. In the 1990s, we had 3.4 million federal employees. In 2020, we had 3 million, same as it was in 1970. And so we have about the same number of employees in the federal government today as we had back in the 1970s, even though the population has increased from about 203 million to 350 million people. And we've hired a lot more outside contractors than ever before. We spent a lot more on outside contracts, like with Elon Musk, for example. But we have the same number of employees that we had back in 1970 as we do today. Now, I don't have back to 1970, but in the Social Security Department, you talked about how your phone call took a long time today. Well, who's in charge right now? Because on the day the Biden administration left, they had gotten it down to a record low response time of 12 minutes to respond to a call, which even 12 minutes to me seems like too much, but that was a record low for what it was. Today, it's going through the roof. And if you look at the number of employees in the Social Security Department, in 1999, there were 59,000 employees. In 2010, there were 66,000 employees. So 59,000 in 1999, 66,000 in 2010. At the end of the Biden administration, there were 56,000 employees, less than it was in 1999, 3,000 less than it was in 1999. And now we're talking about taking it down by another 10,000. Well, no wonder everybody's going to complain that things are broken and it's not working well, because we're trying to take it down. Now, when I was the county executive of Nassau County, it was rated the worst run county in America before I got there, I want to point out. But we went from 8,500 employees down to about 7,000 employees. We did not do it by laying off the lowest wage new employees, the probationary employees. We did it by normal attrition and by offering retirement incentives to the highest wage, most senior employees. And when those people left, we try to make up for the reduced workforce by improving the technology and by doing consolidation and procedures and processes to make things more efficient. What we're doing now through Doge is so haphazard and so reckless. And the idea of trying to instill this fear in people and lay off the low wage people, the provisionary employees, in places that we're trying to hire people up to try and get to the backlogs, like in the IRS, where we make more money than we spend when we hire employees, doesn't make any sense to me. It's just bad management, and it's just scaring the hell out of everybody in the process. And there's going to be a price to pay politically for people, because most of the federal employees live in Republican districts and in Democratic districts, but we'll see that as time goes on. All the stuff we're going to see. You say we're not going to cut Social Security, we're not going to cut Medicaid, we're not going to cut Medicare. Well, we're going to find out in the next 6 months or so what people are really up to. Then we'll really know what it is. And it's not about instilling fear or not instilling fear. We're going to find out what it is as time goes on. Right now, we're concerned that what Doge is doing is reckless and irresponsible. Do we need to get rid of waste, fraud, abuse? Yes. Do we need to make things more efficient? Yes. Do we need better technology? Yes. Do we need better procedures and processes? Yes. But the way that they're doing it right now, and I've given the examples before, laying off the people in the nuclear stockpile, laying off the people that oversee avian flu, laying off the people that oversee measles, doesn't make any sense to me. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I want to yield my remaining minute to Chairman Neal.
My friend from Illinois, he said we don't have conversations, and we have a conversation. We just disagree with you on arithmetic. The arithmetic's pretty simple. Bush Jr., $2.3 trillion worth of tax cuts. 2017, borrowing $2.3 trillion for a tax cut. Now, to hold forth on the basis of what is alleged to be this out-of-control debt. Oh, and by the way, we're going to raise the debt ceiling by $4 trillion in coming weeks so that we can pay for another tax cut. I mean, the logic escapes all of us here. How we can hold forth and suggest on one hand, we're all very concerned about the debt. Oh, but borrow $2.3 trillion to add more to the debt. And now, $4 trillion we will add to the debt. But we can't have that conversation because it gets in the way of our determination to continue to do borrowing and then complain about the size of the debt. I yield back. Thank you, Chairman.
Additional members wish to strike the last word? Seeing none, are there any amendments? We're,
I'd like to strike the last word, and I'd
Oh.
like,
okay, we'll do that. We moved on, but we'll do that, Ms. Miller, because you don't talk nearly as much as a lot of people on this committee, so go, Ms. Miller.
well, I'm sorry.
He
Mr.
may change his
Chairman,
mind.
But I am yielding my time to Mr. Arrington.
My name,
Oh, will the gentleman yield?
you know, I would only speak because my name was invoked. My name was invoked and my honor was questioned, my integrity, my character. Tom Swazi would never question my integrity or character. He's too good of a friend, and I wouldn't question his. I have questioned the motive here as more political than principled, and I don't like to do that. But that's my judgment right now. I think it's too wrapped up in scoring political points, and we're whipping people up into a frenzy instead of working productively to solve some problems here. But I'm not, Tom, I'd have to look at those numbers. I have not looked at the numbers. But to suggest that the federal government had the same amount of employees in the 60s and 70s as we do in the 21st century, when we didn't even have the microwave oven, let alone the internet, is not that impressive of a stat, to be frank. I think we could probably run this government more efficiently post-technology revolution. We still need people, but we need them to show up. Like, I would have a easier time receiving some of this, really, with the sincere pandemic. And we just accepted it as the new normal. And when we talk about, like some of my colleagues, the Democrat colleagues, about my constituents are worth it, this is their benefit, their earned benefit, I agree. But why weren't we fighting to make sure that people were seats, butts were in seats, calls were being answered, cases were being resolved? The very fact, in every congressional office experiences, we had casework through the roof for our retirees who couldn't get their phone calls returned and couldn't get their cases resolved.
Will the gentleman yield?
But where was the indignation? Where was the fight for these constituents at that time?
Will the gentleman yield?
It's a sad thing in this country that we need retirees, our beloved seniors, to have to work through their member of Congress just to get a daggum phone call returned. So I would accept some of this is in a more sincere fashion if it was consistently applied when we had Democrat control and we had other big inefficiency problems. I trust the president. I trust people who have a track record of successfully and efficiently and effectively running organizations. I think this is long overdue. I think it should go across the government. I think we should get information and we should get insight and we should get the opportunity to change some of the things that are needed and codified by an act of Congress. Like, for example, in Medicaid, and I'll yield with the example of Medicaid, President Biden went back, revoked a policy that reviewed the Medicaid rolls twice a year so that we could ensure that only those legally eligible for Medicaid were receiving the benefit. That's a taxpayer safeguard.
that's a safeguard for sustaining the program. And it was revoked from twice a year, and it was only done once a year. Well, that's $160 billion worth of waste and fraud because of a simple program integrity measure that was revoked. That's common sense. I don't
That's not what they're doing.
think there's an American out there that would say,
I move the committee report HRES 195 adversely to the House of Representatives.
The question is on the motion to report HRES 195 adversely to the House of Representatives. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Buchanan.
Yes.
Mr. Buchanan, yes. Mr. Smith of Nebraska. Mr. Smith of Nebraska, yes. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Schweikert. Mr. Schweikert, yes. Mr. LaHood. Mr. LaHood, yes. Mr. Arrington. Mr. Arrington, yes. Mr. Estes. Mr. Estes, yes. Mr. Smucker. Mr. Smucker, yes. Mr. Hearn. Mr. Hearn, yes. Mrs. Miller. Mrs. Miller, yes. Dr. Murphy. Dr. Murphy, yes. Mr. Kustoff. Mr. Kustoff, yes. Mr. Fitzpatrick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, yes. Mr. Stubbe. Mr. Stubbe, yes. Miss Tinney. Miss Tinney, yes. Mrs. Fishbach.
Yes.
Mrs. Fishbach, yes. Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore, yes. Miss Van Dyne. Miss Van Dyne, yes. Mr. Feenstra. Mr. Feenstra, yes. Miss Maliotakis. Mr. Carey. Mr. Carey, yes. Mr. Yakum. Mr. Yakum, yes. Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, yes. Mr. Bean. Mr. Bean, yes. Mr. Moran. Mr. Moran, yes. Mr. Neal. Mr. Neal, no. Mr. Doggett. Mr. Doggett, no. Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, no. Mr. Larson. Mr. Larson, no. Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis, no. Miss Sanchez. Miss Sanchez, no. Miss Sewell. Miss Delbene. Miss Delbene, no. Miss Chu. Miss Chu, no. Miss Moore. Miss Moore, no. Mr. Boyle. Mr. Boyle, no. Mr. Byer. Mr. Byer, no. Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans, no. Mr. Schneider. Mr. Schneider, no. Mr. Panetta. Mr. Panetta, no. Mr. Gomez. Mr. Horsford. Mr. Horsford, no. Miss Plaskett. Miss Plaskett, no. Mr. Swazi. Mr. Swazi, no. Mr. Kelly.
How is Mr. Gomez? I hear him recorded.
Mr. Gomez is not recorded. Mr. Gomez, no. Ms. Maliotakis. Ms. Sewell. Chairman Smith?
Yes.
Chairman Smith, yes.
The clerk will report the vote.
The yeses are 24, the noes are 18.
There being 24 yeses and 18 noes, the motion is agreed to, and HRES 195 is ordered reported adversely to the House. Without objection, members have 2 additional days to file with the committee clerk supplemental additional dissenting or minority views. We are adjourned.